The other way to ask the question might be just what race are your friends? Well, that's not a good question. The question we're asking is, what impact has race had on your friendship choices over the years? So it gives them a really broad question to just tell us their whole life story and their experience of race growing up and who they're friends with, and tell us a lot more information than just who's in their friendship circle right now. It was about, who's friends with only people of their race and who's friends with people of all different races. It really opened people up, and they got them to talk about their experience of race growing up, and they told us the whole story. I was sort of feeling a bit lucky that it wasn't me on the other side of the camera. It was just me asking the question, because these are quite intrusive questions, and I've really respected my participants for opening up in the way they did.
So majority of the kids in my school were Black or Asian.
Yeah.
So that's probably what influenced that aspect of it. But growing up and getting older, I've found it's changed quite a lot. So initially I was friends with whoever was available to be friends with. But now I'm seeing people from different walks of life, different areas. So now my friendship group is a lot more diverse than when I was a child. So when I was, like I said, when I was younger, all my friends were Black and Asian. I think I only had one white friend growing up who was an amazing friend, but they're few and far between when I was a child.
I went to a predominantly white school, and I think a lot of my early friendships were established with being around a lot of white people.
So where I grew up was predominantly a white area, so a lot of my friends were white.
There was probably around 5 Black people in the whole of the school.
Right.
So it's just what I knew. And it wasn't a thing where I was looking around and thinking, that's just what I knew. From primary school, I never used to see people look like me.
Something that's actually quite sad is I wasn't really exposed to a lot of Black kids from where I was taken to school. So when I went to primary school, I was one of 2 in my class, and there was about 10 overall in the entire school.
Well, where I grew up in a little town called Spalding, Lincolnshire. Tiny little thing, river running through it. And I would say probably growing up, it was majority white, very majority white, 99%. And growing up, that was never even something that I never noticed. Do you know what I mean? It was never that was a thing that I ever thought of as specifically different. I never thought that, because I never thought about it. I just thought about how my life has been or what challenge have I had. I never really thought about my colour or what I achieved. I never thought about the colour of my skin being a part of that. Then I came to London, to this university actually, and I moved into a flat with people from all over the world.
I think I'm quite lucky because because of where I grew up, the area I grew up in, and my parents have a lot of friends who aren't white. So I've really, since I was in primary school, been friends with people who aren't white. And to be honest, when I went to uni, I really made an effort. I was I don't want to only be friends with white people when I went to uni. But I think I've been really lucky in terms of where I grew up and what school I went to, where I've always had friends from different races.
Again, I think it's based on circumstances and based on environment. So working in the field that I work at, I've got access to more people or more situations, more circumstances. And I think, again, that's what's influenced my friendships.
My race simply has just meant that I've gravitated towards Black people a whole lot more when it comes to picking my friendships. So, for example, if I was to enter into a room full of people and let's say it's a networking event, this happens all the time. I go into a networking event, the first thing that I do is I'm like, okay, where are the Black people? Where are the Black people? And then once I notice a Black person, I'm like, fantastic, that's going to be the person that I'm going to stick with for the networking event. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to interact with the rest of the people there, but it just means that in order for me to get a lot more comfortable, I want to know what the other Black person in that room is saying. I'm like, oh, hey, how'd you discover this opportunity? Maybe we can discuss the things that, maybe the obstacles that we've gone through to get into this space and stuff like that. It just means that I'm a lot more aware of Black people in spaces than I would be of anybody else.
I'd say a large majority of my friends are Black.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's in part due to me being Black, stating obvious. So in areas where I live is predominantly black and ethnic minorities that live there. So just naturally you're gonna gravitate towards the people who, you know, live around you.
And I was be friends with whoever, whatever colour you are, do you know what I mean? I moved to a school that was completely opposite from what I was used to in it, and it was like, whoa, do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that did look like me. So then when I went to the school, you're just drawn to them, in a sense. Do you get what I mean? Yeah. And I didn't really branch out to anybody else. I was just drawn, and we had quite a big group of us. Obviously, I've got white friends. I am closer. My closest friends are black, I would definitely say. But there's a group of us that have been friends, I'd say, for the last 6 to 8 years. Well, close. There's about 8 of us, and 2 of them in the group are white. Do you know what I mean? And we monthly spend time to each other. We go around each other's house monthly, and that doesn't feel like it's any. We're just all. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. Yeah. We've been on holiday. Every time it's somebody's getting married or something, it's a stag. We all go. It's not a thing. It's kind of just the norm.
Growing up, a lot of my close friends were black. And I think what influenced those choices of having closer black friendships was having a lot of similarities in terms of like upbringing, culture, food, and whether it would be, you know, social preferences, etc., language, relational stuff. So we just understood each other. Not only that, but the biggest factor is that our skin colour was the same.
But yeah, a large majority of my friends are black, African as well, to be specific. And I just feel like there's a level of familiarity and similarities that we both have. Do you know what I mean? So like we can relate on a lot of things. Do you know what I'm saying?
I find that with most with mixed race people, I find the most like ease friendship-wise, because a lot of mixed race people are racially ambiguous. You look at a mixed race person, you don't know what they could be, who they are, what their background is.
I guess it's just who you look like you're more likely to feel comfortable with. Like the same, like if I was only men and there was a woman, I'd sit next to the girl. The same way, like if there's hardly any black people in your lecture, you're going to go towards the black person. I just think it's because you identify the same way, and I think that's quite common, especially I've found for like my black guy friends who they find it hard sometimes on their uni courses. I did economics at uni, and there was like 5 black people on the course. There was like 300 of us all together, and like you just noticed like just them grouping.
You said you had a deep friendship with Zach because of your race.
A lot of the time it's kind of understanding. It never mattered to us, but it was just cool to be like, oh, you get how I feel sometimes. And that can obviously, then you've got another level of friendship.
And not to say that I don't have friendships outside of that, but at those times, that's what heavily influenced, you know, not that I didn't have friends who weren't of other colours, because, you know, my wife is white, you know, and a lot of friends I have, you know, are white, etc. And we have similarities, but on different kind of bases, if that makes sense.
That aspect of the familiarity, the similarities and upbringing, having that sort of inside banter, and just understanding my struggle from a place where like we're fighting the same fight too, it makes the friendship a lot sweeter, I think.
There are things that you just relate to because of like a similar background, or having a friend that's mixed race that can understand my hair struggles, or like understand, like talk about stuff like that. Like when I was younger, people would ask me questions like, they'd be confused when I said that I put stuff in my hair, or I'd get asked if my hair was real. So having a friend that has the same hair as me, that understands that stuff, as small as it sounds, it's actually quite a big deal, because I didn't have friends that could relate to me like that. So then when I found a friend that could, it was like, oh, like, this is great.
Not necessarily, I wouldn't say I have any white close friends, but I do have white friends who I worked with. When it comes down to it, interacting with white people, we wouldn't interact based on like the obstacles that we jumped through. We'd interact, maybe let's say we went to the same university, or let's say we got paired together or something. So that would mostly be it.
Now you don't ask people a question. Like I don't ask my white friends why they have straight hair.
Why do you have straight
hair? Yeah, like it's a stupid question. Or I don't like go up to my white friends and like touch their hair and like, oh my gosh, look, like, but people do that to me. So it makes me feel different, and then it makes you feel like wrong. It makes you feel like you're not supposed to like that. And like I said, I used to straighten my hair, like, and I basically ruined my hair and had to have like it chopped really short because I damaged it because I wanted to have straight hair, which it was, to me, the hair thing was quite a big deal.
I feel like they expected us to just sort of be friends because we were of the same colour or of similar colours. In the future, I feel like it had an impact on who I picked with friends because mostly I just sort of, like, you know, the people that were there, so I was just associating with white people. Like, you know, at the same time, I'm not too fussed about who I associate with as long as you're a decent person.
You kind of try and prove that you can do it as well as the whites, whether that's, you know, drinking or socialising, because you're kind of expected to fit into this either model minority bracket or be Bruce Lee. Do you know what I mean? Right. So you've got to fit in one of the boxes, so you've got to try and prove that you're more than that.
Over time at school, well, I suppose what a reoccurring theme was that I probably learned fairly early on into being a teenager was that when a group of all white friends, or I was around them, and again my race wasn't really brought up a lot, because they might have seen me as fully one of their own, I was probably let into a lot of very racist conversations that someone with darker skin might not have heard because they might have bit their tongue more, you know. So I always saw it as a sense that I was kind of able to eavesdrop on these conversations because of my lighter skin. And from that kind of made me very hesitant to make groups of all white friends simply because of the experiences I've had. They knew that my dad worked in the Middle East and they knew that I had this Arabic name, but again, because I didn't really make a point of it, I was born here, I grew up here, I had a British accent, that they just kind of ignored that part, I suppose, because it made them more comfortable, I feel like anyway. So it was easier then to just kind of dismiss that part, because to a lot of, especially as I've found as well, to a lot of white people, that I look white and I can, you know, get away with being white, so to speak.
I'd say like race did have a big impact on it, and like the people that I would surround myself with, and people that I originally thought were my friends, and like making more and more racial slurs and thinking like it was okay to say that. Even they like at that point would know my heritage and thought it was okay to say that, and then it came to a point where I had to like sever myself from these people because I was like, you can't keep saying this, because it was the point where like, if someone ever says anything, I'll call them out on it straight up. But like, say he'd be like, one of my flatmates, he'd be like, oh, you're always playing your black music. I'd be like, excuse me, like you can't say that, like, because if I looked more mixed race and I was in that flat with those people, they definitely may not have taken me into that, like they may not have made friends with me in the same way that they did, because they definitely had these racial prejudices, but when they looked at me, the prejudices I suppose didn't sound off and weren't like, oh, because I look white. 100%. But I've also had it like on the other end, where it's like with black people or other mixed race people, like there has been times it's been like difficult for me to enter friendships on that scale as well, because like I don't identify as white, but some people, they will refuse to acknowledge me as dual heritage because I look so white. So like it's been tricky on both sides, both ends of the spectrum.
But later on down the line, I feel like because of the way I may have spoken or the way I may have acted, may have alienated some black people into whether or not they considered me an ally or even, you know, their friend. I don't know why particularly, and I've always kind of been too sensitive to ask why, mainly because it's quite a sensitive topic for me. Mainly also because I feel like sometimes they don't consider me black or of any ethnic minority, because when you're in the middle it's very difficult. Some black people can be quite like, just a bit like, not arm's length, but they're just a bit cautious around me. And I don't know if that's just because I'm very bubbly or energetic, and that might be a contrast to their personality. But yeah, I do see that quite a bit more in black people when I try and make friends with them.
But there has always been that, like, if I say to a black person, like, oh, a mixed race, oh, are you like quarter Jamaican? They'll be like, don't gas, no you're not. And it's like, well, I guess there are some people who lie about that, but like my sister, very obviously mixed race. My younger sister, same like racial makeup as me. She's very obviously mixed race. My brother's mixed race as well, he's older. So like, I don't look like any of my siblings. So growing up, it was difficult because I saw myself as like part of, like I see myself as part of the black community. Yeah. But when people in the black community refuse to accept me, it's difficult because who am I to say that they're wrong in saying that? Like, they have every right to make their judgments on me and my race because I look white. So it's a very, like, I don't know, tentative.
I think that at the time it affected me, but I didn't know. Things like not looking like my friends, having different family lives, having a different background would affect me, because I always wanted to have straight hair, for example. Like I always used to straighten my hair when I was younger because all my friends had straight hair. Or like wanting my skin to be light, or not understanding why I looked different. Yeah. It used to make me feel different, for starters. It used to make, because it's almost as if the question was asked as if that it was wrong. Like it would be like, as if my hair was wrong. But then as I got older and went to secondary school, I went to quite a very diverse secondary school. Then I started to make friends with more black people, more mixed race people, more people from different ethnicities. And I guess that's where I was like, oh, like I'm mixed race. Like I kind of felt like, I guess I fit in because I found people that looked like me and could relate to me on different things and on a different level than the friends that I had when I was younger.
So I was getting a very sort of white English sort of experience with my friends, and was getting a very brown Pakistani experience at home. So there was these two sort of worlds colliding, and it's sort of, I got sort of caught in the middle of these worlds. Parts of who I am have come from this sort of being in the middle and this sort of not knowing exactly where I sort of identify personally as well, really. I've spoken like in the past, like I've said as a joke, and obviously there's a lot of truth in jokes as well. So I've said like, I'm too brown for the white people, but too white for the brown people. And it's sort of this weird sort of limbo, and that's the truth that I'm in. Not being sort of confused by it and not being sort of torn by it, but accepting and realizing like actually I've got these two massive sort of cultures that are colliding together, and they make me the unique person that I am. And I don't need to necessarily fit in with the brown people or fit in with the white people. I can just exist and be me and be accepted from both sides.
I like to think that I exist very firmly in the centre, and I don't try to deter to either. I just try to take myself as myself, because I understand that now with mixed race, it's not just black, white, mixed. There's like many different multitudes. Like I've got nieces and nephews who are partially Asian, white, Italian, all types of different mixes and races. And I just feel like it's about finding your identity as a human being and what you truly think as a mixed race person, what you want to be in that place.
So I think that my friendship with them, although at the time they were the only people I knew, so they were really the only friends I could have, looking back now, I understand the effect that it had on me and my self-esteem and the way that I saw myself as a mixed race person in comparison to all my friends that were white.
Well, when I was younger, I don't really think I saw race as something that was that important, or I didn't really see the impact that it could have in someone's life or in society. I just thought, like, yeah, everyone's different race, whatever. But as you get older, obviously you go through experiences and you're like, wow, we went to the same place, we did the same thing, but we had different experiences, and why is that, and stuff like that.
At uni, I kind of made an effort to have a diverse friendship group. Yeah, a lot of my friends were Korean, the guy I was speaking about was from Nepal, and that makes it a lot more interesting as a friendship group.
If they were a nice person, then we could be friends. It never really mattered to me what race you were, your religion, anything. I wasn't bothered. Nice people, I just want to be around nice people. I never found out where someone's from or what someone believes in and gone, oh, I don't want to be your friend just because of that, I don't care. I feel if somebody can't accept who you are or what you believe in yourself, and I mean, you don't really need friends like that.
I quite understand that your reality might well be very different from mine, and that's okay.
So yeah, London was a massive educational thing, and I can definitely see a difference between the people, a lot of my friend groups back home that never made that jump. And if you try and describe those changes or even those things, the attitude that I was always greeted with, which is just, well, why should I change? Like, I've never had a problem up to this point, which I can agree with. Do you know what I mean? Say like, yeah, neither did I. Until you're in a place and you actually care about someone and you realise that what you said hurt that person, and it was something that you never even thought of, and made no difference to me. Easy change.
How did your race change your experience of friendship growing up? Has it altered it? Has it meant you sway towards one type of person rather than another? That was what I meant when I asked what impact it has had. As we were talking about before with identity, it was this duality thing for a lot of people. They were stuck in the middle. So for the mixed race people in the group, you know, the white people wouldn't accept them and the black people wouldn't accept them, and they were kind of stuck in the middle. One interesting thing from this question was how one of the participants said, yeah, when I enter a uni lecture, there's only one other black person in the room. So I'm automatically going to sit next to that black person, because it's like being a woman. If you're the only other woman in the room, you're probably going to sit next to the woman because you feel more comfortable, and it's not a personal thing. It's not to say to all these white people in the room, I don't want to be friends with you. It's just that you feel safer, you feel like you can trust the other black person in the room more than you can all the other white people. It's not a personal thing, so don't feel attacked when a black person doesn't sit next to you on the bus and they sit next to the other black person. So that's an interesting little takeaway point from this question.